Today in this Dhamma talk, we will discuss the importance of going for refuge, not only for life, but throughout samsara. We will talk about the importance of some of the daily chanting that is part of the Sri Lanka chants, also part of the Thai chants in a very similar form. And then we will also talk about perhaps the rareness of being able to practice the Dhamma and be with the Dhamma, no matter where you are in samsara, and the importance of making a determination to follow the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha throughout samsara until you reach Nibbana. So now we will start. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato Sammā-sambuddhase. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato Sammā-sambuddhase. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato Sammā-sambuddhase. So recently I was asked to give a Dhamma talk, an Anumodana talk, a talk of rejoicing in one's merits. Sometimes they say it's a talk on gratitude. But enjoying one's merits, rejoicing in one's merits for a dana that is done. And these people, they requested, on the birthday of this person, last Uposatha, that they be able to follow the triple gem for life. And when I gave my Dhamma talk, or what I will give to you today, I raised it one more level, not just following the triple gem for life, but following until samsara is ending for you because you have practiced and reached Nibbana. One of the important chants that we have, it's part of the evening chanting usually in the Sri Lankan tradition. And it's something that I take to heart. It's something I've chanted over and over and over and over again. I feel it's very important. And recently I've stopped, actually. I had a shorter version of it, but I've decided to put it back into my daily chanting because I think it's so important. And it's something I used to do. And it's very important to make the determination to follow the triple gem, not only for life, but as long as samsara is, as long as you are running through samsara, it does not end until you reach Nibbana, Pari-nibbana actually. So what is the chant? What are we chanting where it is a determination to follow the Buddha's teachings, to follow the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha? Buddhaṃ jīvita pariyantaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Until life's end, I go to the Buddha for refuge. Ye ca buddhātita ca ye ca buddhānāgita pacchuppanna ca buddhaṃ vandāmi sabbada. Daily, I venerate and pay respects to the Buddhas of the past, to the Buddhas of the future, and to the Buddhas of the present. Nati me saranaṃ aññaṃ buddho me saranaṃ varaṃ etena satya vanjena hotu me jaya mangalam. There is no other refuge for me. The Buddha is my supreme refuge. and by this assertion or the statement of truth, may there be victory and prosperity for me. Uddamam gena vandeyang padipam suvaruttamam Bundeyo kalito doso buddho gamatutam mamam. I bow and pay my respects with the head at the dust on the feet of the Supreme Great One. If I have committed any wrongdoing towards the Buddha, may the Buddha forgive me for that. So we normally chant the 9 qualities of the Buddha. Then we chant this phrase, these phrases that I have just explained to you before. I find it very important that we make the determination throughout samsara, because we make the determination to also pay respect to the Buddhas of the future, the past, the present, and the future. So this is very important. And not only that, of course, this life. Until this life's end, I will go for refuge for the Buddha. But we also give respect to the Buddha, to the Buddhas of the past, to the future and the present. The future is very important because if you don't reach Nibbana, your only chance is to follow the Buddha's teaching in the future lives. And so what you can do is you can put sort of like a post-hypnotic suggestion, a determination for throughout samsara that you will reconnect with the Buddha, with the Dhamma, and with the Sangha. It's very important. And that's why I decided to make this video, make this Dhamma talk for other people to hear. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But we also do the same thing for the Dhamma. Dhammang jivita pariyantang saranang gacchami. So, until life's end, I go to the Dhamma for refuge. So we'll be repeating this, and you'll be able to understand what each phrase means because they repeat for the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Sangha, just a slightly different. Yecha Dhamma tita che yecha Dhamma nagita Paccuppanna che Dhamma hangvandami sabbada. Daily I venerate and pay respect to the Dhammas of the past, to the Dhammas of the future, and to the Dhammas of the present, past, present, future. Natti me saranang anyan, Dhammo me saranang varang, etena satya vanjena hotu me jayamangalang, uddamam gena vandehang, Dhammang chedividang varang, Dhammeyo kalito doso Dhammo kamatu tammamam. There is no other refuge for me. The Dhamma is my supreme refuge. By this assertion, or the statement of truth, may there be victory and prosperity for me. I bow and pay my respects to the head of the Dhamma, which is threefold and supreme. This is one of the things that are different. If I have committed any wrongdoing towards the Dhamma, may the Dhamma forgive me for that. So again, one of the most important things is that you are saying that you will only you will only take the Dhamma as your refuge until life's end. And when you pay respect to the past and the present, and importantly, the future Dhamma, and you vow to not take another refuge, nati me saranang anyam, Dhammo me saranang varang, etena satyavanjena hotu me jayamangalang. So you're vowing not to take another refuge. There is no other refuge for me. The Dhamma is my supreme refuge. And by this assertion of this truth, may there be victory and prosperity for me. What is victory and prosperity? It is reaching the greatest wealth of the Dhamma, Nibbana, the end of the path. And then we do the same thing for the Sangha. Sanghang jivita pariyantang saranang gacchami. Until life's end, I go for refuge in the Sangha. Ye cha sangatita cha ye cha sangha nagata patanna cha ye sangha hangwandami samveda. Daily I venerate and pay my respects to the Sanghas of the past, to the Sanghas of the future, and to the Sanghas of the present, to the past, the present, and the future. After you mention both past, present, and future, then you say, Nati me saranang anyang, Sangho me saranang varang, etena satyavanjena hotu me jayamangalang. There is no other refuge for me. The Sangha is my supreme refuge. By this assertion of this truth, may there be victory and prosperity for me. So again, after you mention the future Sangha that you pay respect, you're saying that there is no other refuge for you. And by this assertion, may there be victory and prosperity for me. This is until you reach Nibbana, the greatest wealth of the triple gem. The triple refuge, your real refuge is when you reach Nibbana. And the real peace is when parinibbana happens. When there's no more samsara, when there's the total escape from samsara. Uddamam gena vandeham sanghang cha divido temam Sangheyo kalito doso sangho kamatutam mamam. In the last verse, I bow and pay my respects with my head to the Sangha, which is threefold and supreme. If I have committed any wrongdoing towards the Sangha, may the Sangha forgive me for that. So you can see how we chant. We chant the 9 qualities of the Buddha, and then we start with Buddhaṃ jīvita pariyantang saranang gacchāmi. And then we do the 6-fold qualities of the Dhamma. And then we do Dhammang jīvita pariyantang saranang gacchāmi. And then we do the 9-fold qualities of the Sangha. Sanghang jīvita pariyantang saranang gacchāmi. And then we just continue making these determinations for each, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. It's very important. It's very important to have these determinations. Now, we have some people who say that we should only chant or refer to the Pali that is from the Buddha's words himself, the Buddha-vandanā. But the question is, if you said this in English, until life's end I go to the Buddha for refuge, is there anything wrong with that? There is no other refuge for me. Is there anything wrong with that? We chant this in Pali so that we can be harmonious with our fellow Sangha, with our fellow community. We can speak in the common language. of Pali, which was also the common language in India, so that we can, no matter what language we speak, and I've been to several international monasteries, and some, they don't speak any English, or I could be in Myanmar, and half of the monastery speaks Myanmar. We have the Chinese group, we have the Vietnamese group, we have the English-only group. So we can all chant together as a community. Is there anything wrong with that? No. And if you hear me speak about these topics again and again and again, is there anything wrong with that? No. Different monasteries have different schedules, but when I was in Naoena, it was part of the daily chants. And it's very important. And I feel that it's very important to make this determination. And if we do this on a daily basis, it's very important, it's very powerful, because we can develop this habitual karma, achina karma, habitual karma. You can do some things that are very big, some good, wholesome activities, wholesome donations, whatever. They can be very big. You can donate robes. You can donate a bowl. And then you could do maybe nothing for a while, and then maybe another time you donate food or something like that, and nothing. But if you donate every day, that's also much better. That's a habitual karma. But if you chant every day and you make these determinations every day, it's much more, we can't say it's much more powerful, but it's so important to do. It's so important to have a daily habit and to daily affirm your commitment to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Not only through life, but through samsara. Because it is so rare to come across the Buddha, and the Buddha's teachings, and those who are following the teachings. So when we hear this every day, if we chant this every day, or you hear me talk about this multiple times, don't get bored. The Buddha, he also used to give a Dhamma talk every day. Appamadena bhikkhave sambhadete dulabo buddhupado lokasmim dulabo manusattapatilabo dulaba kanasambati dulaba pabbajja dulabam sadhamma-savanam dulabo sappurisa-samsevo. What does that mean? Well, first he's telling everyone to be mindful, to always be diligent and practice mindfulness and awareness. And then he tells people how rare the Buddha is to arise in the world. And then he talks about how rare the human birth is, how rare it is to get the proper requisites for the practicing of the Dhamma, how rare it is to get the pabbajja, the ordination, the renunciation. And how rare it is to get the right Dhamma, and how rare it is to get the associations with the people who are practicing well, the correct people. It's very rare, actually, to find monks who follow the proper vinaya, the proper morality dictated by the Buddha. Even if we take the novice monks' 10 precepts, only 10 precepts. We have 227 rules. But if we take just the 10 precepts, even to find monks who follow all 10 precepts, or even the last of the 10 precepts, not to use money, It's very rare. It's very rare. And we say that sila is a cause for samadhi, and samadhi is a cause for panya. So they might have the correct teachings, but they can't put them into practice. Not if the morality is flawed. So it's very rare to have the Buddha arise in the world. That could be another Dhamma talk. How rare it is for the Buddha to come. It's not every lifetime. It's very rare. And rare is the human birth. And rare is the requisites, like triple rooted, that we have knowledge. We have knowledge baked into our life continuum, our most subtlest subconscious state that's running throughout our mental stream continuously. Not continuously, but it appears superficially to be continuously, but it's always interrupted. And to be able to get the chance to practice, to get the pabbajja, the ordination, the renunciation, to get the correct Dhamma. There are many types of Dhamma that are out there. There, especially in the West. There are many variations. People reject this, people reject that. People make up this, people make up that. Even today, we have all the teachings available to us. And people are excluding the Theravada teachings, some of the Theravada teachings. This came later, they say. This is commentarial. And then there's other groups that are following things from other sects, that like Chinese texts that they claim are older. And then they're picking and choosing what they want to follow from multiple versions of the Dhamma. So even today, this is what is happening. And for sure, this has happened in the past. This is why we have the Kata-watu in the Abhidhamma texts. So it's very rare. It's very, very rare to get the proper teachings. And of course, the Sangha, or the community that follows these teachings correctly. Most Westerners, they don't like chanting. Most Westerners, they're very, very keen on rejecting ritualistic practices. After all, a Sotapanna rejects ritualistic practices. But not necessarily. They reject the idea that doing ritualistic things can lead to your salvation. That if you tend a sacred fire, that this can somehow lead to your salvation. In this way, this is what is rejected. But the Westerners, especially, they like to, and also in other traditions too, there's a whole Thai and Lao group that they don't like anything about ritualistic or chanting anything that's not the Buddha's words. And I too, when I was a young monk, I didn't like chanting. I didn't like chanting at all. And I remember I was at Vowing. It's a forest monastery in Sri Lanka. And one of the only places I could be comfortable was in one of the rooms. We had these kuti rooms, these rooms where we could sleep that were underneath the Sima, the ordination hall, or the Uposatha hall. Because they have these bugs called hohapadoo. They're like gnats or sandflies. And they go through mosquito nets and they just bite you repeatedly. But there, for some reason, and this is a very holy place, especially that area in the Na forest, Na-wena, there's no problem with those bugs. But you have to live with many other monks sharing the same building, sharing the same toilets. not only that, in the evening, there is evening chanting. There's morning chanting too. This is where it all takes place. That's why the Sammā is a very holy place. It's a very special place. And there I was, living underneath there. And people would come, the monks would come, and sometimes they talk before the chanting. And the chanting starts promptly. And because they're involved in the conversation, they don't want to stop, and they continue to chant. To continue to talk while the chanting is going on. And there I was, in my room, doing other things, trying to do other forms of study or work or meditation. And sometimes they'd be chit-chatting right in front of my room. It was a silent zone. It was a zone where people are not supposed to talk. And it would make me angry. And of course, being angry is no good, especially a monk. Monks shouldn't be angry. I mean, you can't really have one and the other. But it happens. And so there I was sitting in my room, and I was like, oh, I can't believe we're doing this. I can't believe this is happening. And it happens like every day. It was like a ritual too. So we have the chanting, people come, they're involved in a conversation, and then they never go upstairs, and they just chat the whole time. And so I decided, I could be in my room and be angry, or I could be upstairs doing wholesome deeds and chanting with the Sangha. And so when I did that, when I started going to chanting, it grew on me. And I made sure that I knew what the words meant, especially for the daily part. We have like a rotating schedule where we chant this one night and another sutta another night. But we also have the daily affirmations and vows. And so I made an assertion, a determination to know what they meant. And it became meaningful for me. They're not sutta. A lot of times they're not suttas. They're not Buddha's words. The Dula Bo chant is, but actually it's rewritten slightly to be a little more poetic. But it doesn't matter. It's in the Pali language, and it's an affirmation and taking these vows throughout samsara. And so by participating in the chanting on a daily basis, it grew on me, and I started to like the chanting. And I feel it's very important to chant every day. And I try to chant every day, because I feel it's very important to make these assertions, to make these determinations, and to understand how dangerous samsara is. And eventually, as time went on, I became more and more senior. And some of the times, I was leading the chanting in the same room where I used to, in the same building where I was down below, being angry and not participating. And now, I guess because of the years that I've been a monk, now I'm quite often the leader of the morning chants at this monastery. We usually have the most senior monk lead the chants. So, as a Westerner, it's very difficult for us to come to the Sangha. The people are often how do you say, they're always interested. They're always interested. How did you get into Buddhism? This is like the number one question I've been asked. You know, if you're a monk in Sri Lanka, it's all around you, and actually you probably have better karma. You have better karma to be born in Sri Lanka or Myanmar or whatever, if you want to be Buddhist and you're very serious about it. But to be a Westerner, especially born in a non-Buddhist family, and to be able to get connected with Buddhism, not only that, to become a monk, how rare is that? Even in Buddhist countries like Sri Lanka, it is also rare for people to become monks. In Myanmar, they have this tradition where it's called Dolaba. They ordain monks temporarily, which is good. People can get a taste of what it's like to ordain. But in Sri Lanka, they usually want you to be a lifetime monk. You have to have, not have to have, but usually, according to the culture, they want you to have this lifetime affirmation that when you join the Sangha, you will stay there for life. So it's rare. It's rare in a Buddhist country like Sri Lanka for people to ordain. But in the West, it's unheard of. It's almost just unheard of. And so people ask me, how did you become a monk? I don't know. Some things became habitual for me. Some things just became my habit. So when I was in college, my first semester, I took a world religions course, just by chance, and I started shopping around for religions. And while most people in universities, they party, they drink, they do drugs, I had none of that for the entire time that I was in university. I worked in the library on party night. Recently I asked someone about that, who's like a newer generation. He says every night is party night, actually. But during my time, it was Thursday. Thursday night was party night. Of course, Friday and Saturday as well. And so when I learned that the 5 precepts, not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in sexual misconduct, not to lie, and not to take intoxicants. When I learned about that, and I was already a vegetarian, and I believed in harmlessness as well, I was like, oh, I'm already following these. How is that? Well, we can logically induce that maybe it was some type of habitual karma, or some type of circumstances where something clicked, and then I decided to follow this way. And then later I learned how to meditate. I thought, okay, I'm Buddhist, I should learn how to meditate. And so I asked someone to teach me how to meditate, and then it stuck. And I was meditating all the time. He taught me once, and for some reason I felt it was good for me to do. And I went through all these different pathways of the Dhamma, because in America we have so many different spiritual paths. But it was very rare. It was very rare in the 90s, we could say, in 89, 90s, mid-90s, to even know what Theravada Buddhism was. But slowly I started to, it was like, you have a deck of cards and you slowly put them in order. It was a little bit like that. And then after some time, everything's straight. And so first I went into general spirituality and meditation and Vietnamese Buddhism and Chinese Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism, some of the Hinduism. And then later I learned about Theravada and I was like, oh my, this is perfect. You could feel that alignment. This is how it should be. You just know that it's right. And so, through logic, I thought it was right, and everything grew and grew and grew until I felt like I couldn't work anymore in a job because ethics became more and more important. And then I knew I had to become a monk. And through logic, we can assume that maybe there was determinations done before. Determinations like buddhaṃ jīvita paryantaṃ saranang gacchāmi, ye ca buddha tita ca ye ca buddha nagata, paccuppanna ca buddhaṃ vandāmi sabbara, nati me saranang anyang buddho me saranang varang, etena satya vanjena hotu me jaya mangalang, uddamam gena vandehang paripam suvaruttamam, buddheyo kalito doso buddho kamatu tammamam. Perhaps in the past, throughout samsara, I have made these determinations to follow the Buddha's teachings, to follow the Dhamma, to follow the Sangha throughout samsara until I reach Nibbana. Perhaps, most likely actually. We might even say most definitely, because it's so rare to come across the Buddha's teachings, to come across the Dhamma, and to come across the Sangha. So rare. There could be a whole Dhamma talk on how rare the human birth is. So yeah, we could say most definitely, based on logic. And so that's why I feel it is so important that if you don't have this habit, that you start the habit today, and that you get a hold of the chanting. I'll put it in the notes. You get a hold of the chanting, you do the 9 qualities of the Buddha, and then you make the statements after the 9 qualities of the Buddha. You do the 6 qualities of the Dhamma, and then you make the statements after the 6 qualities of the Dhamma. You make the 9 qualities of the Sangha, and then you make the statements after you chant the 9 qualities of the Sangha. And this would be a complete chant of the Triple Gem. So not only can you practice for life, this life, but you can make the affirmation, the determination to only follow the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha throughout samsara until you're successful, until you're no longer in samsara. And so may you attain Nibbana safely and quickly. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.